Hi, welcome to the NVIDIA Joint Lab on Mixed Reality. My name is Eugene. I'm a professor of cultural computing here at the University of Nottingham's China campus. And I'm also a founding director of the NVIDIA Joint Lab on Mixed Reality, which is an NVIDIA Technology Center here, supported by NVIDIA. And if you move around with me, you can see that we've got many equipment here. We are a VR and AR, virtual reality and augmented reality development center. And we deal with all sorts of research, but particularly research related to cultural heritage, as in monuments, sites, objects, behaviors, and so on. So I'm going to go through introducing my lab first. But my talk is on the sharing of cultural heritage with virtual reality technology. So I'm not just talking about virtual reality as in the headset, but also the suite of technology which makes it appropriate for the creation of all sorts of virtual reality applications and augmented reality. So I am also the co-editor-in-chief of Presence, Teleoperators and Virtual Environments from the MIT Press Journal. And for this journal, we welcome all kinds of articles from application to the art and science of virtual reality and virtual environment. So if you have any articles which are up to publication standard, good content and original, do send it over. We have a very good review pipeline, so we welcome articles. The vision of my lab is on the virtual reality and augmented reality. However, in the spectrum of these two of the realities, we concentrate on mixed reality as in the coexistence of the virtual and the real. So we build our own equipment. We have two Alienwares here, apart from our two Alienwares and our HP servers. We build all our machines here in order to suit the NVIDIA GPUs which are provided us in the lab from NVIDIA. So we have all professional cards such as the Quadro M6000 24 gigabyte. We have K80, K40, GP100, and all these are used for our big data processing, social media processing, and also virtual reality applications. We have many projects running here, all funded, one of which is highly computational. It's an agent-based modeling project which models ancient ecosystems within the North Sea. 10,000 years ago it wasn't submerged, but 7,000 years ago, due to climate change, it submerged the whole landscape. So this is also a cultural heritage archaeological project. I'm associated with the group which scans the entire landscape in a digital format, so the Stonehenge Hills Landscape Project, which we've discovered 17 monuments, and with the landscape we've also used it at the Royal Society Summer Science Exhibition in 2015 to crowd behavior mine so that we can understand how people use the landscape, from a burial, burying your dead, burying your family members sort of context. And this is published in Virtual Systems and Multimedia in 2 years ago. And we also have the Curious Travelers project, which we have extended to GCRF, Global Challenges Research Funding. 5 hubs, 28 countries, 80 partners, and we hope that we'll get this grant to extend our project. Check out the Curious Travelers project, Visualizing Heritage website for more information. Within China, I have a Silk Road project which goes through the entire route of the Silk Road, both terrestrial and marine, in order to acquire through crowdsourcing all the objects which are scattered either in the museums or people's homes, so that we can construct the entire database of the Silk Road. And what's important is a global platform which deals with the reproduction of art and cultural heritage. In the context of this talk, it is cultural heritage. And when you reproduce or document or record cultural heritage, they are not only in image format, not only in videos or 360 videos, but also more and more we have the recording of 3D contents, high quality 3D contents as techniques for 3D recording becomes pervasive, inexpensive and accessible. So laser scanning in the past has been very expensive. It's not affordable to many labs nor individuals, not even museums. But photogrammetry techniques essentially uses any digital camera. So you can say that you can use a high resolution smartphone camera and that will give you a certain quality. If you use a DSLR, it will give you also a very good quality, even a true facsimile quality. So the REACH dialogue is an initiative endorsed by UNESCO, and it's also a project spearheaded by the Victoria and Albert Museum, supported by the Perry Foundation. And this project essentially reviews and redraft Henry Cole's 1867 Convention on the reproduction of art. During that time, they reproduced artworks, original artworks, using cast electrotypes and photographs, so it's physical and analog. But it's been 150 years since, and the Victoria and Albert Museum felt that there should be a review. And I was invited as a global consultant, an expert in digital heritage, to contribute to the program, which takes me to Beijing's roundtable, London's event, Abu Dhabi for the technical policy development, and also finally last week at Paris UNESCO, I gave a speech on sustainable digital heritage, which talks about the challenges of storage and access, and also sharing. So the review and redraft and the final declaration produced the booklet, but also a book called Copy Culture, which is edited by Brendan Cormier. And within the book is a series of case studies, articles on the reproduction of art and cultural heritage. If you can, you just need to search DNA REACH in Google, and the first two links, especially the second link, will bring you to the two electronic version of the book. I suggest that you look at them because they're very important in a global context. And the REACH community, which I'm part of, also contributes to supporting individual and organization who has no access to resources and expertise. Why is cultural heritage important? Cultural heritage is important because cultural heritage ensures that we retain our identity, we have societal value, nationalistic value, and so on. And there's a sign outside of the Afghanistan Museum which says that a nation stays alive when its culture stays alive. Nancy Dupree, American historian, also said that a nation keeps its integrity only when its members hold fast to values from its history and heritage. And there's also economic value and impacts from heritage sites. Imagine Stonehenge. So when people visit Stonehenge, they're paying not just a fee, but also the sorts of spending, which involves traveling, purchase, hotel stay, to food, lodging, and also other spending. So you can see in the graph, natural and cultural heritage contributes to 26.37 billion, according to a study in 2008. And so in the past 10 years, 20 years, digital technology has transformed the documentation and also the analysis and interpretation of cultural heritage. And this is progressed very well, but they're mainly focused on sites which are very old. For example, Stonehenge has a history of thousands of years. We also have the Galveston site. It's a wetlands archaeology, and so I went there and filmed this, and this is my colleagues pulling out a post which leads people into the village from a river. So apart from physical work, you have also laser scanning which accompanies the work, and I shall go through this slightly. So this was in 2011, and you have laser scanning which produces a very high quality model. But laser scanning is also an expensive activity. You're talking about equipment, expertise to process the equipment, the models and so on. So things have changed slightly with photogrammetry, and photogrammetry is the main idea of this talk. So moving on to the next slide. After London, as I was heading back to China for a TEDx talk, TEDx Ningbo, I downloaded the data from the UNESCO sites and generated a graph which shows here that the oldest site which is preserved or listed in the World Heritage is millions of years old. Then you have sites which are concentrated, many sites which are important, World Heritage sites, they're concentrated from hundreds to thousands of years. And the youngest site, which is very rare, is 29 years old, and that is the Sydney Opera House. And you can see that large global organizations, museums, they focus their effort on heritage which are very old, ancient even. But the problem with old sites is that the memories are gone unless there are written records. People can only analyze and interpret what the monuments, a 4,000-year-old monument means. Without written record, these are very difficult. So looking at this graph, you can see that sites which are below 100 years old are sites which have living memories. And these sites, I think, are very important. And our lab places great focus on sites which are still living. So talking a little bit about in the Chinese character, that's hometown, right? Hometown. So your hometown, you may be working in Rome, but your hometown may be actually Brixton. So in going to large cities, you always think back, and as you go back to hometown for Christmas or for a Chinese Spring Festival, you start to wonder about the feelings which comes up as you are arriving at your hometown. And those are very warm, fuzzy feeling which we have. Also, when looking at photos, old photographs, it gives you memories which are probably sweet, maybe bitter, but they are memories nonetheless. So I think that there is an importance in capturing living memories embedded in structures. When I look at this picture, when I was probably 3-4 years old, I am the ugly baby there, and the other one is my brother. We were sitting on a Mercedes-Benz. And when I look at this photo, I can immediately go in to this space again. I know there's a tree there, which emits a very fragrant flavor around 7 p.m. and that tree is special for that. And going into the house, so the television where my grandpa looks at watches TV and falls asleep and snores very loudly, going upstairs and so on. So pictures brings us into our memory spaces. And I call all these things, pictures, videos, memory anchors, right? And even physical structures, they are memory anchors. So as we proceed and go in to our past memories, it brings back a very good feeling. The memories are very important because they are our roots and our identity. And we have memory anchors, right? The moment we see a particular scene or object from pictures and videos, it brings us back. Even visiting our hometown, it brings us back maybe 10, 20 years ago. So these are memory anchors. However, all these memory anchors, they reside within our mind. And even if they reside in our memory, but as we share stories, our friends and families can only imagine. They can never be in the same space as we are. So I put a few question marks there to say they can only imagine, right? We tell them a story, you may be a good storyteller, telling them a very good story which brings them into that imagination, but you don't share the same space. So what can virtual reality provide which will allow us to not only share stories verbally, but also bring our audience, our family members into the same space as we are. Virtual reality has existed for a long time, since Ivan Sutherland, who had a vision that it could be a display into a window into a virtual world. Image will improve until the picture looks real. Computer maintains model in real time, and so on. So Sutherland has been quite visionary in his statements here, and you can see that we, in the 21st century, 2018, we have almost arrived at all these predictions. So virtual reality, citing Bozen and Kobe, it's really immersion, interaction, and imagination, the three I's, converging, which simulates the entire feeling that we are in another space, we're in another world. So to date, if you work with virtual reality 20 years ago, you notice that virtual reality is quite crude, but today it's so accessible, so cheap, and quite powerful. We can not only track the rotation of our head, we can also track the orientation and position, and including the position of our body. If we hold these two, if you turn your head around, these two controllers, right? So we have the HTC Vive with the Oculus Rift, and they are controllers which allows us to interact with the space around us. So virtual reality has gone on to become very powerful. It's a matter of how we use it. So in our lab, we do a lot of research, particularly with user studies. There are a few articles coming out, and you can read them when they're published. But essentially, we look at human behavior, presence, nostalgia, memory, and imagination. So a sense of presence can be induced by various means: visual and aural sense, narrative activity-based interactivity, difficulty of the task, including AI imbued characters in the environment. So we simulate virtual reality using quite many techniques. Equipment-wise, these are very accessible. Say 1,500 pounds, you could get a good workstation, probably including some of the equipment shown here. So if you look at this video, it is actually a real-time rendering, NVIDIA FaceWorks, real-time rendering of a character which is so real, and it's real-time, it's not just a picture. Every strand of hair, the follicles, the sun shining through, the translucency of the skin of the ear, these are all simulated with very powerful graphics cards. Looking at another scene, you wouldn't imagine that this is a real-time scene where you can actually walk through. So if we can simulate something so real using today's powerful computers, can we actually also embed our memories in there? That is the question which we are experimenting with. So if you're able to walk through this scene, apart from the feelings and the wetness of the floor, you feel that you are actually there. So reality can be simulated in virtual reality. So I've also gone around using just my iPhone. I traveled to Japan, one of the, to Penang in the Georgetown World Heritage Site, just with an iPhone, and that allows me using photogrammetry techniques, which are now very common to the virtual environments 3D computer graphics community, Hawaii, and also the Nottingham campus in China, using a drone. I'm able to reconstruct the reality where I am inside virtual reality, and that's in Hawaii at the Polynesian Cultural Center. So, and that's also a plate of fried noodles, which I took in Penang, Malaysia. It's a food heaven. And that just took me a few minutes, but generating that took a few more minutes. So if we can capture a 3D space with the structure and monuments, we can make use of them, right? So these are digitization of our memory places, structures, monuments, objects. We also need to visualize them, and visualization requires us to do much more than capturing data, right? Visualization allows us to add value to the data which we have. So in a site you have many pictures, and these are very common techniques available now. You can generate this with many software available now too. With this, I have begun to capture memories which are very sweet to me. We went to Australia with my children last year, and they were playing in this sandbox, and I decided that maybe I should just capture this for my memory so that I can share them with my audience, my other family members, right? If we have just pictures, they can only imagine, they can't be in the same space as we are. So if you also look around our lab, we have multiple equipments, right, which allows us to put multiple people using networks into the same space for sharing. And that's seashells. In 3D, as my little daughter was washing them, I was capturing a 3D version of them, including their play area, study area. Right? So apart from pictures and videos which we can share with our friends and families, we can also start to capture our spaces where memories are embedded. So imagine 20, 30 years later, when I want to tell my grandchildren about my past and my heritage, virtual reality is probably the main technology in the future which will be used for sharing. Today in social media we share photos, videos, text, but in the future we'll be able to share our 3D spaces. And using the same technology, we went to an ancient village, 石桥头村 in Chinese, a stone, the head of the stone bridge village, that's it, literally. So I was there flying with my drone, and I captured the entire village. And there is a little house dwelt by a couple, and the lady you see on the right side, she is blind, but she goes around the house cutting vegetables, meat, right, bringing the condiments to the area, and she cooks for us, and we had a great meal, whilst her partner, in their 70, 80 years old now, they coordinated. So this particular space is not ancient history. It is not something which is looked upon by museums nor global heritage organization as something which is important for capture. But I think that there's an audience, there's a community which we have, which can help us to capture the near past, near histories which we have. And that will be very important for the future. If nobody captures this, when they go and the house is torn down, all the memories are gone. So just to show you a little video. That's Jerry, my friend who took me to the village. So this video will be made available in YouTube. So the house is right here. That's the little house that we captured the video from. So I'm going to move on. You can look at the video a little bit later. So we did some capture. And look, these are not pictures, not videos. These are 3D objects which allows us to go in, and my PhD students are now working to make the objects interactable. Okay, so if you look at the quality. Okay, so you can see the quality of the capture, and it requires some processing, yes. But once the processing is done, you're able to interact with the objects within, which adds to the believability of the virtual environment. And this is a scene outside of the kitchen. And this is an ancient tofu maker. And the 70, 80-year-old couple, they coordinated in making tofu for us. Within this box, little box, and as you can see, you can also essentially build rather than capture anything which is non-existent, and this is for a Ningbo Maritime Silk Road Port project which we have. Okay, so it's a basket. So in making reality around us, virtual reality, it's a simple process. We have, you take many pictures using photogrammetry technique. As I mentioned before, this is very common now. Convert it to 3D, and then you do some processing and a little bit of setup. Maybe not even programming if it's not a complex interactive environment. And then you allow people to put it on, and then you can share it in the future. So this is the tofu scene with my PhD students who is now working on it. So for her and for me and my other students, we can testify that as we enter the virtual environment, it brings us that that feeling as when we were actually in the village. So with our little experience now working on this particular project, we feel that memories can also be embedded and transmitted via virtual reality. So moving on, and this particular scene is both reconstructed but also 3D captured. So all the objects are 3D captured, but the environment and the scene is reconstructed. You can merge them, you add effects, you post-process the virtual environment, and you have a scene which gives you a particular feeling. Because it's virtual reality, anything can be simulated within. So I'm picking up the plate with the coins and letting the coin drop. Okay, so it is still a crude environment, but we're working on reconstructing this for our experiment with participants. This is a mixture of the Oculus Rift with the Leap Motion controller. And a group of museum workers experiencing our system. So we're working with museums too. And then moving on to a much more elaborate project involving creating an entire ancient pot. You can see the basket earlier, using the HTC Vive to augmented reality version, looking at other objects. So in our project portfolio, currently we also have another PhD project working on the combination of virtual and augmented reality in a multi-user environment. So that essentially concludes and summarizes my talk. I believe that in the future there can be a coexistence of the real and the virtual as we begin to share more 3D contents, 3D environments which we can go into rather than just pictures and 2D images in social media. We've looked at the value of cultural heritage, how it contributes to the economy, but also our identity, our roots, and our history, and our national values. I've also talked about the importance of capturing memories, especially living memories embedded within structures, architectures, monuments, objects, before they're lost. And these memories are within 100 years old, in a span of years which are probably not important to museums and world organizations. Virtual reality is now accessible, the technology is accessible, inexpensive for capturing and the sharing of our memory anchors. So I gave this term memory anchors because they bring us back to where we were that many years ago. And the sharing of 3D object environments will become as pervasive as images and videos in the future. That is my prediction. And the REACH initiative, led by the Victoria and Albert Museum, which I'm involved in, is a global platform which will make this a possibility because we have expertise, communities of expertise, but also a range of technical documents which people can access and learn from. So with this, I conclude my talk. My final phrase is, in the future, the past will be as accessible as the present because of virtual reality technology. Thank you.